Honored to be here. For the last 3 years, we had a feature, and you're going to hear some really fascinating research that people have done, as well as projects people have done. These are practical, real-world artifacts and things that go in the community. About 3 years ago, we started having a dichotomy, the choice between research project and project field project, and I'm proud of all the students' work today. So here's the order that we're going to go in. We're going to start with Neil Peller, Samantha Minkins, Adam Tucker, Aaron Pendergast, Blake Dolce, and Alex Locke. So it's my pleasure I'm going to introduce Neil. First, I'm going to stop the screen share. And Neil, you should be able to, one second. Neil is a fourth grade teacher with 10 years of experience at the elementary level and is currently pursuing an MA in Educational Technology at NJCU. In addition to his classroom teaching, he leads the Title I after-school program focusing on reading and mathematics support. His professional experience during the COVID-19 pandemic sparked an interest in how technology transformed communication between teachers and families. He's particularly interested in balancing the benefits of digital communication with the well-being and workload of educators.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, just tell me when to say next. Let me see if I can pin you too. I'm getting fancy here.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. So I did a research paper, and the title of my paper was Innovations in Technology and the Effect on Communication Between Teachers and Parents. You can go to the next slide. All right. So, um, well, I try to pick a topic that was kind of something that, as a fourth grade teacher, that it's kind of a hot topic that you hear around the faculty room. And one of the things a lot of teachers were talking about or have been talking about is parent-teacher relationships and how they're not quite the same in many different ways from years past. So this study explored the impact on technology and parent-teacher communication from before, during, and after the COVID pandemic. So I used March 2020, I guess, for those of us who were in the classroom at the time, March 13th exactly. That was Friday of March 13th, 2020. We all said, I'll see you in 2 weeks to our kids. And it was a year and a half before we got back into the classroom, a lot of us. But over this period of time, from before, during, and after, communication, the form of communication changed a lot over the time, and it affected parent-teacher relationships in different ways. So the findings here highlight the positive, negative aspects due to increased accessibility of the teacher to the parents and increased demands. And I also wanted to discuss how that changed the teacher's quality of life as well. So I interviewed not just surveys, but I really did deep interviews with experienced teachers. I did 11 interviews and really dove deep into how technology changed their interactions with parents. You can go to the next slide. So we all know that communications changed like everywhere over the past number of years in all aspects of business and life. So what I wanted to do was really see how this affected teachers as well and their relationships. So next slide. So my research was based on these three research questions. Um, it's the first question is really about how teachers are communicating with educators, how they communicated earlier in the career and prior to COVID, how they communicated with parents during and then after. So that was modes of communication, and then um, how did that affect effective parent-teacher relationships and to come up with better outcomes for the students, whether it's academic or social, and collaboration with the parents. How did that affect the effectiveness of the relationships? And the last thing I kind of talked about already is how did it affect their quality of life and role as an educator? Next slide. So I first started off with a literature review and kind of looking at what communication and parent-teacher relationships look like um, in general, and um, it wasn't really too earth-shattering. Like I said, overall, parents and teachers had good relationships, and that the more you collaborate, the better the relationship is, and the better the outcome for the student. And of course, there's many different variables depending on demographics, depending on grade level and age level. Um, so there's a lot of different variables. Next slide. So I interviewed 11 different people. Most of the interviews are about an hour. And I used 12 different interview questions that really analyzed what their relationship was before, during, and after COVID. I created transcripts and then really narrowed it down to summaries of each of the stories or vignettes, and then I look for common themes throughout those throughout the stories, and to draw conclusions. So the chapter 4 and 5 is really about what I found out. We can go to the next slide. So the vignettes, there were like little stories based on the interviews. My paper had the interviews and then summaries of each of them, talking about how they communicated and the types of relationships and how they felt as being a teacher. So that next chapter kind of talked about that. And chapter 5, the next slide, talked about the findings, and these are the common themes. This is really my findings of the of the study. So technological affordances and parental engagement in academic learning. So basically, greater access to technology allowed for greater collaboration. Prior to COVID, most of the teachers that I talked to said there was little access to technology, and parents didn't really know as much what was going on in the classroom. They only knew what came home as paper assignments or if they really asked. During COVID, there was a complete collaboration because teachers couldn't really do virtual learning as we knew it without the parents helping. So they were heavily involved in the academic learning process. When we came back from COVID, they still had the same access to what was going on, but there wasn't as much desire to connect with academics. They really wanted to know more about the socialization and the mental health of their kids, and academic learning kind of, for the most part, through a lot of stories, took a back seat. Right, next slide. This was probably the biggest topic that popped up, um, and the biggest theme, and everyone talked about is the blurring of the boundaries and formality communication. So prior to COVID, it was very formal relationships that most teachers had with the parents. If it was written communication, it started off as "Dear Mrs. Smith" or "Dear Mr. Davis," and it was very formal. Um, Most of the time, the expectations were very low. Teachers had to respond within 24 to 48 hours, and there was very limited availability, like outside of school hours. During COVID, that all changed when a lot of parents were literally sitting next to their kids in class and virtual learning. Um, Parents would literally ask questions in the middle of class. They would pop on, their face would be on the screen. They'd be in constant communication, either through email or messaging apps. And what happened was that very formal professional relationship turned into very informal, friendly relationship, and turned slightly unprofessional in many cases. Um, After COVID, that unprofessional and sometimes less respectful communication really really continued, and that's where a lot of my stories um, came from in my interviews, was the issue of this completely unprofessional relationship that remained. Well, I think I have one more theme to finish up. The next slide. The work-life balance. So um, what this is probably the most surprising response that I got was, um, a lot of literature talks about the increased expectations and the stress of COVID, but it was interesting, and I didn't expect it, is a lot of the teachers really enjoyed COVID teaching and the work-life balance of being able to be at home and the same type of positive effects of many people who enjoy um, virtual working at home as well. So I really enjoyed finding all this out. It was really interesting to me. And what I did find is that districts really need to support teachers to come up with guidelines for more effective communication and limit the access that parents have with teachers to set guidelines for them. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Neil. That's fascinating. I mean, great stuff. Um, we're short on time. I'm rushing, but does anyone have a question for Neil? I feel we have to, honor him with any questions right now.
I just had it. Neil, do you mind just going back to the last slide? I just wanted to see the last point, or if you could just read it out loud.
Second, the one that second, the one on work-life balance, or the one that I didn't get to on the recommendations.
The last one you showed us, I think, it was like a summary, but the last one was like after COVID, it remained
Is this it?
unprofessional.
Oh, that was about the formality of communication. Communication remained unprofessional and sometimes less respectful.
Right, more interested in mental health and well-being. Okay, I'm sorry, maybe it was the one before that. You're right.
Yeah, so the expectations I talked a lot about, and the teachers, the interviewees, talked a lot about availability is um, parents expect availability. It's since COVID where they had basically the teachers were in their home through virtual learning and um, through video conferencing like we're doing here, is they felt like they had constant contact and had the right to constant contact with the teachers, but they kind of paid it back with collaboration and they were partners in the education process as well. And a lot of the teachers, the interviews kind of talked about how the collaboration end stopped, but the expectations of availability did not. So a lot of them talked about that. That's kind of
How,
what that meant.
I guess I was wondering, like, how were they? How are the teachers expected to be more available? Like, is it through Zoom or just like through email at any hours of
So
the day, or
I'm
or
for
sorry.
instance,
whatever?
last night I had three emails after 10 o'clock last night from parents.
Right, right. So it's like it's sort of like the Zoom mentality is carrying over into email,
Yeah, so
like in a way. Like,
one of the
yeah,
teachers said it feels like they're like when they communicate with you, they're talking to a friend, is they send you like short, like more messages, and they expect
right,
like the parent that emailed me last night expected at 10 o'clock a response before
right.
like I
School
went
the
to
next day.
sleep. Like
Right, right.
they still have the expectations of that. Didn't
That's
change.
interesting. Yeah,
You know?
interesting.
But yeah, thank you so much. It was fascinating. Thanks for the questions. I'll move on. Samantha, if you could share your screen and enjoy giving the introduction. Um, Samantha Mickens is a second grade teacher with 5 years of classroom experience and a graduate student in ed tech at NJCU. She really worked as a reading interventionist, supporting students from kindergarten to fifth grade, which deepened her expertise in literacy instruction. Trained in multiple phonics-based programs, she's passionate about helping students develop strong foundational reading skills. Her work focuses on integrating literacy instruction with educational technology to create engaging and inclusive learning experiences. Samantha, the floor is yours. I'm going to try to pin you. If there's a problem with the screen share, someone tell me. Um, I'm not sure I get to see it all.
All right, are you guys able to see it? Okay.
I don't see you in the big square in the middle. I see you on top. Oh, now I see it. Sorry. I see the
Okay.
presentation.
Oh, can you see my screen or no? Is it not
Yeah,
showing?
I can see it. Table of content.
You can see my, sorry, I don't know why it's not. Okay. Everyone can see it okay? Sorry. Okay, so I'm doing early literacy development is one of the most important skills for students. I mainly work with phonics, vocabulary development, reading, comprehension, and writing. And this is looking at in early elementary grades, so K through 2. A lot of literacy instruction relies on worksheet and repetitive practices, and sometimes for the younger learners it's not really engaging enough for them. So many students learn best with their hands-on and interactive activities with their peers. So my project basically is bringing both things together: literacy makerspace, so literacy development with maker spaces. So I mainly, the project is a handbook for teachers to use. It's a practical guide for educators, mainly in kindergarten through second grade, to integrate language and phonics-based skills and the instruction with research-based practices with the classroom to implement into the classroom. So the hands-on stations are where the students will build and design and reflect on what they did, just so it's more engaging for them and they're able to problem solve as well. So in the handbook, there is sections for how each skill is developed. So the stations focus on phonics and word recognition, language development, writing and comprehension, and also collaborating and communicating with others. Each station is designed, so when in the handbook, it describes the literacy activity, the target skill, the materials and setup, and then step-by-step directions. Some differentiated instruction as well if it's not fit for that age, assessment ideas, and then explaining why the activity is effective. These are suggested materials to use. A lot of the materials I tried to keep at low cost to teachers, or things that you can already find in your classroom. So like, I know in teaching younger grades, I always have Play-Doh and craft sticks, pipe cleaners, paper bags, and writing in index papers. And then also considering space of where you're going to set up. I'm just going to go through the ones that I've made just really briefly to get an idea of what I created. So the first one is a phonics construction lab. The students will work on their phonics sounds they're learning, and then they are writing it. So they're connecting the words and the sounds together and creating the words. They can also, the teacher can give them pictures to create the words, or they can give them a target sound. The sound sorting makerspace is for mainly kindergartners. It's to match the beginning and ending sounds to pictures or objects. This can also be used in early first grade. This one was one of my favorites that I did with some of the students, and that I created. It's a cup stacking tower. So the students have to match a picture card with, it has a picture on it, and then the kids have to decode reading the word on the cup and match it to the picture to create a tower. Readers theater. So this is when the students have little scripts. I have this in the handbook linked to ones that I've used before to have on focus sounds. The students can read it. It helps their fluency development and helps repeated reading and oral language development as well in collaborating with others. This station is great to combine with the puppet and storytelling station. The students can create characters. Sometimes with the Readers Theater, they can create their characters from Readers Theater and then develop puppets. It's great for language development and creativity and storytelling. You can also relate this back to the Readers Theater or the puppet. It's create your own book. Teachers can get creative with this one. They can use picture prompts, task cards, relate it to anything that they're doing in class. This helps with students' vocabulary and sentence structure and their phonics knowledge. The multi-sensory sight word lab. This is one of my favorites as well. The kids use their sight words from their class. So mostly in the younger grades is when they're starting to learn, like they're called tricky words or heart words or red words. They're words that they can't decode. So they have to learn them in different ways. And research finds that multi-sensory approach helps students effectively learn the words more correctly and quicker. The last one that I developed was the board game lab. So I created different board games for the students based off of what phonics, sound, and skill that we were learning. And then the students were able to collaborate and roll and read with their partner. It helped them take turns and learn how to work in groups together. For an extension activity, I had the students create their own game boards as well. And then connecting to my research question, the makerspace activities promoted increased student engagement with literacy tasks. Some hands-on learning encouraged students to actively interact with literacy concepts, and then makerspace stations support creativity and collaboration. I also have sorry. I also have my handbook as well. Let me see. Sorry, it's on a different tab. That I could share with anyone, or if you know of anyone that would be interested in it. And it just breaks down everything I just went over, and it goes into detail of the background and the research of it, and then also in detail of the what age level, the focus, and the objective, and everything that you need to know for each station.
Wow, wonderful. Samantha, thank you so much. Good job. You know what I'm going to do? Instead of questions now, I'm going to put up a discussion thread and we could talk about the projects, and I'll also put the video up there, but great job. Wonderful. And before you make that public, I have a few suggestions on how to tweak it. You should put your copyright at the bottom, the copyright symbol. You can copyright that yourself, so you're in good shape. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Next, we have Adam Tucker. Adam, welcome to thank you for coming. Adam has served as the technology coordinator and teacher at Harmony Township School since 2013 while completing his MA in EdTech at NJCU. He teaches computer science, STEM, digital citizenship and productivity applications to students in K through 8th grade. In addition to managing school district technology systems, he advises robotics and a photography club and provides technical support for staff and students. His background in management science and information systems from Rutgers informs his practical and systems-oriented approach to educational technology. Adam, the floor is yours. We're looking forward to seeing what you got.
All right. Okay, thank you. You're able to see my slides, right? Yes. So I did my thesis project on analyzing and improving computer-based adaptive testing in grades 6 to 8. I know computer-based testing is everybody's favorite subject, especially at this time of year. But New Jersey is using new assessments this year, which are adaptive, and that got me thinking about doing a project on that to analyze how they compare to the previous non-adaptive assessments, and also to get feedback from students and staff about standardized testing and how it could be made better and less stressful. So my research questions were: how do test results on adaptive assessments compare with non-adaptive assessments? How do students, teachers, and administrators feel about testing with regards to the content, procedures, preparation, and reporting of results? And what are some recommendations for improving the test experience and lowering the stress caused by testing going forward? My second chapter was the review of related literature. I did a lot of research on different topics in testing. Of course, I don't have time to talk about all of these now, but I do have a few highlights that I'll mention here on the next few slides. Testing has been around for quite a while. Before standardized testing, assessment looked very different. There were things like shows and public readings and plays and exhibitions. But then in the 1800s, it really started to become more standardized with written tests. Boston and some of the early, some big cities started doing it first, and then it spread. Colleges started requiring testing for entrance. And then after World War II, all the states ended up creating different kinds of standardized tests to evaluate schools and compare progress. That became a nationwide push, which really culminated with No Child Left Behind in 2002. A few years after that, there started being a pushback that there was just too much testing. But during that same time frame, you also had this switch to computer-based testing away from paper and pencil. And so all these changes were sort of happening at the same time. When they design a new standardized test, it's a pretty lengthy process. There's a lot of question writing and then analyzing and looking at the difficulty, looking at how the questions work with different kinds of learners, what kind of accommodations could be made for these tests to make them more fair. I looked at the pros and cons of testing. There's certainly some benefits to it in providing data to teachers, to students and parents, different stakeholders. It allows for some fair comparisons because everyone is taking the same one, but there are definitely drawbacks. It only measures certain skills. Some of the most important skills aren't really measured at all, things like collaboration, leadership, empathy. So that's a drawback. And then it also causes a lot of stress for students and for teachers, and it can negatively impact mental health as well. So computer adaptive testing, which is really what this study is about, this is where the test questions are selected as students are taking the assessment. So they answer a certain, the first set of questions, and then the next set are determined based on whether they got the first set right or wrong. And they might see more difficult questions if they're getting a lot of right answers. And if they're getting a lot of incorrect answers, they might see easier questions. The scoring algorithm takes this all into account when determining their proficiency level. But the idea is that, students are going to have less wasted time of questions that they have no chance of answering correctly. But for those students who can, it can really fine tune, how far above grade level they might be. Whereas those who struggle, and it can at least figure out which particular skills they've mastered, which ones they need work on. So the last little section of that research was the future of assessment. There was a lot of interesting articles about that and how AI can totally change this thing, both in improving current models of assessment, but creating all kinds of new forms that weren't possible without AI. Having discussion with a chatbot, for example, as a form of assessment. The research methods, I created spreadsheets to analyze test data. I had the NJSLA scores from the previous school year that are non-adaptive, and then we have a district assessment that we just started using called Renaissance, which is adaptive. I'd love to compare NJSLA adaptive with the older scores, but those won't be available until at least the summer. They're just taking those now. But I could still do some comparison of proficiency levels. These two both provide, the Renaissance is designed to guess what their NJSLA score might be in terms of what level of proficiency. I did look at some specific subsets there also besides the general population. Then for the second and third research questions, it was based on surveys that I created for staff and students, and I conducted those electronically using Google Forms. These are some of the closed response survey questions. They were done on the scale of strongly disagree to strongly agree. And there were several others also. There was a survey for the students and a survey for the staff. And then I had open-ended questions, again, asking about their feelings of testing, how it affects them, how it could be made better. Do they believe testing is fair? In chapter 4, the research findings, I created data tables to tabulate all of the test scores and looking at variation of which one was higher, how many scored higher on the adaptive or the other way around or the same score. And then I tabulated the survey results using Google Forms to get all that data. So this is some of the findings that were included in chapter 4. Again, well, I'll show in chapter 5 how the adaptive assessments compared. This is some of the survey responses, just a few excerpts of the exact quotes that I included from students and from staff about testing. Chapter 5, I analyzed that, came up with some conclusions with the research questions. So for research question 1, I did determine that most students scored the same or slightly better on the adaptive assessments, but major differences were pretty rare. It's not a magic bullet or anything. So ELA scores did see a little bit more improvement than the math. The math was pretty close actually to what they did before. 8th grade math was actually an anomaly where the scores on the non-adaptive assessment were higher. For research question 2, their thoughts on testing. Most students were able to handle the testing without problem. They did talk about how they hadn't practiced everything that was on it. They did tend to be in favor of the adaptive testing model, which was described, and they did indicate that testing is a source of stress for many students. In research question 3, we looked at students suggested ideas like snacks and stress relief toys, additional practice. The staff were looking at better preparation and really working on the student mindset, not to eliminate the stress, but to prepare students to handle it, because they're going to be in these kinds of situations in all areas of life. Some future considerations that I kind of mentioned was, again, looking at the new NJSLA and trying to implement some of the ideas that were generated, and always remembering that testing is only one data point and there's a lot of other ways we can evaluate students. We need to consider all of them. These were the references from the project. And again, just thank you, Dr. Schamberg, for organizing the event, and Dr. Collado, my research advisor, the other professors, and the participating school students and staff, and my family and friends.
Thank you.
you.
Yeah, fascinating. Thank you for doing it. Interesting topic, and thanks for tackling it. Next, we have Erin Pendergast. Erin is an applied technology teacher with 19 years of experience teaching computer-aided design and is pursuing an MA in Ed Tech at NJCU. She specializes in preparing students to earn industry-recognized software certifications through certified user exams. Her teaching emphasizes career readiness and practical technical skills connected to architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing industries. She's committed to helping schools create clear and consistent pathways for technical certification programs. Really important job nowadays, considering the changes in the career market and colleges. So, Erin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. S. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Can you guys see the first slide? We good?
I think I'm is that me on your screen? I think you've got sharing. I think you've got me in a little window down there too, so I'm double. You can do it again, but just minimize
Sorry.
the Zoom screen or share window, not screen. So it doesn't really matter, but I think it's going to slow up your bandwidth.
All right. How's that? Sorry, guys. Can you guys see my screen now?
You're good.
Okay. So my thesis project was about implementing computer-aided design certifications in your high school. My goal was to create a centralized resource for an implementation guidebook. This goes through the benefits, some sample curriculum, and it just provides a centralized resource. First of all, I would like to thank you, Dr. Schamberg, and New Jersey City University. Thank you to my high school that I work at, Mainland Regional High School, and thank you to my supportive husband and family. So a little bit about me. Dr. Schamberg kind of covered it. I've been teaching for 19 years, but the past 9 years, we've really been specializing in my computer-aided design classes have been specializing in industry valued credentials. So as I've been working with, with the CAD program, I've realized that there's sort of a lacking of this centralized resource. And my proposition was to create a user-friendly manual that all stakeholders could use, whether it's teachers, administration, or if you just wanted to, pitch this idea to your school board, you could kind of start here. Just a little bit of background really quick. So the importance of industry valued credentials in high school makes students more marketable and increases their opportunities for internships, careers, college applications, even like the trades industry. Of a student who is going into the trades and he's very gung-ho about getting all his certifications, just to give him, the one-up leg against everybody else. It bridges the gap between high school and the workforce, and it can support industry-aligned career paths. For example, if students want to go to school for architecture or engineering, if they have the CAD background, they have a pretty much a clear pathway on what the day in, day out work life is going to be for them. And overall, just kind of demonstrates their efficiency and competency of the skills that they're learning. Before we kind of jump in, I just wanted to explain how scattered the resources are to get started. So as Dr. S mentioned, the ACU is so going off standardized tests, it's basically your entry-level certification exam for computer-aided design. There's many other softwares that the company Certiport, which is the next topic that I'm going to cover. They are the official testing company, so they deliver and manage the exams. And what we do is we buy Gmetrics, which is a practice test platform where it pulls data from the students. You can kind of track their individual goals and see how fast they're taking their exams, and then kind of set them off to be ready to take the exams. Brain Buffet is a third-party curriculum that offers project-based learning and video instruction, and also sample files that go along with the videos. And then, of course, your IT department, super important. It's the school staff that's responsible for helping the teacher make sure all the licensing's correct, all the software is downloaded properly, and any technical troubleshooting that needs to happen on test day. So, I just proposed to create this manual, and I felt like there was a void, there was a need for a centralized resource and to set up some some consistency. So I did want to jump like into a little bit, like showcasing some of the manual. So I'm just going to jump onto that super quick. This is my layout, but I just wanted to make you guys aware. Some of the industry standard software would be AutoCAD, and that's used for engineering design and architecture, interior design, manufacturing. Then we have Revit, which some of you guys may have heard of these softwares, along the way, but this one's used for more structural engineering and construction management. Definitely architects use it day in, day out. And these are global softwares as well. And then we have Inventors. These are the three that I kind of specialize in teaching, but they all come with the certification exams. So the Inventor would be the 3D mechanical design, and more robotics, industrial design, and making sure parts and assemblies work together for manufacture. So that's sort of like the overview of the pathways the students can take. Again, this is my manual, but I wanted to go over some of the
Sorry, Erin,
highlights.
are you you're just sharing a PowerPoint slide. Are you think you're sharing a manual or
Oh yeah, I did think that.
Okay, sorry, but yeah, that's what it sounded like. I just wanted to let you know. So
Oh,
you were just sharing, there was just a static slide that said manual on it.
oh, I'm sorry, guys. All right. So can you see the red, the blue, and the yellow?
No, you stopped the screen share. I just see you. We just see you. We just see the regular Zoom. Start the share again, maybe.
Geez,
Oh, you got it. Perfect. Yeah, thank
for a
you.
technology teacher, you would think that I could figure this out.
That's it.
Sorry, I won't rewind on the softwares. I'm sure you heard about what I said, but anyway, I just pretty much broke down the pathways for the students inside the manual, letting the teachers know that there was like different choices for the students. And then I kind of wanted to showcase some of the exam questions that I've come up with. So some sample curriculum might be have the students work on the following drawings. A sample test question might be to fill it, which would be make a radius edge and then find the arc length of the radius. Maybe create a 5-side polygon and find the area, or join this polygon and find the area. So that all of these objectives tie to what is governed as exam objectives. So the teacher can look at the exam objectives and then be able to study these skills and then create their own test questions, make sure the kids know their skills and kind of hone in on what the industry is looking for. So these skills have become they've been tested by people in the industry that are looking for students or workers with these specific skill sets in the specific softwares, and then they create the exam based off that. So again, another example would be building a part like this, and then maybe figuring out changing the mass, changing the material, and then kicking out the data. So it's a lot of make changes to the drawing, find the data. And then again, this is for the Inventor exam, and all these test questions kind of line up with the exam objectives. And then I just wanted to showcase like another one from Revit. So this would be like an architecture example where maybe they have to put a roof with specific overhang and a specific rafter, and then they would have to find like the volume of the roof. So all that being said, in the end, what we strive for is for the students to celebrate their success. So here we are at the very end when the students become certified. They get these beautiful certifications. We print them out, frame them, and then this is like their bragging rights. They get after their exam, they get their score report straight away, And then they also get what's called a digital badge that, as far as like micro credentials go and digital badges go, the students can really celebrate this, put it on a resume, use it for job application, and so forth. So, I mean, this is your one-stop shop for everything. And that's it.
Wow, wonderful. It's funny. I've been in educational technology for 25 years, and just the breadth of things that are under the umbrella of educational technology. I think we get a good sample of it today. So, Aaron, that was fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Blake, if you want to share your screen, you're up next. We're looking forward to. Blake is a special education teacher with 11 years of experience teaching in inclusion classrooms. Her work focuses on helping students become more independent learners through targeted accommodations and instructional modifications. He's especially interested in the role of assistive technology in supporting student achievement and participation. Blake is committed to creating inclusive learning environments that empower students with diverse needs. Blake, the screen is yours.
Sorry, just figuring out. Can you see the screen?
See it perfectly, yes. You see it
Okay,
in
great.
slideshow mode, not presenter mode. So if you
Okay,
want to
hold
start
on one
presenting.
second. How does that continue
Go to
to
presenter view, maybe? Did you hit presenter view?
Does that look good? Oopsies. I
It
don't
looks good,
know.
but we're on the third slide and presenter view. Not presenter view, we're on like the edit view.
The edit view. All right. Well,
Did you click
wait, hold on.
presenter
How's
view?
that?
Perfect, that's it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I did a thesis research project on how assistive technology affected reading comprehension for all groups of students in a third grade inclusion setting. So I am currently a third grade teacher, a special ed teacher to be specific. So I really wanted to explore that aspect of using assistive technology, being that it has expanded so rapidly over the last few years. So my research questions are: what is the level of comfort students have in using the assistive technology to support reading comprehension, and what ways can they be implemented effectively to enhance the reading comprehension? Um, so I conducted it in a 3-5 school in a third grade inclusion classroom. I gave the consent form to all of my students. I have 16 students this year in the inclusion classroom, and 6 students were selected. So I selected 4 general education students, 1 student who is on INRS, which is an intervention and referral service program, just to monitor goals, to make sure they're making progress, and 1 special education student. So I assigned them all of the pseudonyms for the confidentiality. And then I collected a lot of student interviews. I observed the students in what assistive technology they were using by creating field notes, and I used my reading curriculum to create to use pre and post assessments. So I didn't really reinvent the wheel. I just used the curriculum to utilize the assistive technology mainly on the post assessment, not so much the pre assessment, because I wanted to see how much growth there was. So I did a 4-week study, and I met with all students for 20 minutes during small group sessions. Originally, my plan was that I wanted to use like speech to text and text to speech, all different types of assistive technology. Because of the 4-week study, I really focused on different platforms that were utilizing text to speech, specifically in reading applications that our district already offers. So the first theme that I found is that students genuinely feel comfortable using the technology, being that this is a COVID group. They are familiar with it. They have one-to-one technology. They take it home, and they utilize it. So their confidence varied by platform. For example, we use an iReady platform that has the text to speech already on it, especially for math. That was very comfortable for them because they use it all the time. A program like Newsela, which just recently started using assistive technology, they weren't as comfortable with it because it wasn't familiar. The ease of navigation impacted how engaged they were. So if it wasn't easy and it wasn't very friendly, they, forget about it. They weren't really interested. And so the second theme that I found is that it had a really positive impact. So it increased all of their understanding of text, it improved their confidence, they had fewer reading errors, and their retention of the information was much more able to recall the information. So on their assessment from pre to post, my INRS students grew 39 percentage points. My special education student grew 35 percentage points, and most of the general ed students were able to score 80% or higher. Being that they already are used to it, this was just kind of an added boost to already increase their reading comprehension. So some of the limitations and areas for improvement that I found were frustrations with their navigation, difficulty controlling the pace. I found that the students, some of the students liked a slower reading fluency reader on the platforms, and some of them didn't let you control that. So they had a more difficult time following along. And some students, being that they are in third grade, they had a difficult time multitasking. So being that they had to listen, read, and do an activity, that was very tricky for them. So some limitations that I noticed, I did have a small sample size. I did see positive growth in all of my students. However, third grade is that reading to learn. And so I would be curious to kind of see the difference in grade levels. You have student absences, there's only the text to speech. So there's a lot of different impacts that I think the study really could have, I could have dove deeper into exploring all of those things. But being that it was only 4 weeks, it was very limited in what I could find and what I could research. So some conclusions, I saw a huge impact in struggling readers, and their confidence really improved. Being that it was consistent, they knew what to expect. Even though their fluency and comprehension struggle, they were able to listen and feel like they were successful in taking a grade level text assessment. So that was super positive. Some educational implications are that being that we do test reading comprehension, sometimes the assistive technology tools kind of have to be evaluated for depending on what you're assessing. So even though, yes, it was very positive, kind of using it lightly, but also making sure that the students are understanding what they're reading and not just with the assistive technology tool itself. So some future classroom applications could look like continued implementation of text-to-speech tools, sharing findings with their parents and educators, making sure that teachers are given professional development in the text-to-speech piece of the assistive technology, and how it can be utilized appropriately during reading instruction. So that was my thesis.
Thanks for sharing, Blake. It was wonderful. Thank you. And last we have Alex. Alex, you could share your screen while I give you an introduction. Alex is a media specialist serving students in grades 2 to 6 and completing an MA in Ed Tech. With academic backgrounds in photography, film, journalism, art history, and library science, Alex's work consistently centers on storytelling and creative expression. A lifelong interest in comics, illustration, and narrative art informs the way students are encouraged to create using digital tools such as Book Creator and Soundtrap. Alex believes students learn most deeply when they become creators and reinterpret literature in imaginative ways. And I think his project is really show the limits of how broad a broad spectrum of topics in ed tech. Alex, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Schamberg, for the intro. That was very nice. I'm just gonna, I guess you guys can see everything. Can you see everything on the screen? Or
Yes, we see your screen perfectly.
oh, I'm sorry. Okay. All right, great. Right. So I did mine about basically the idea of like reinvention and adaptation, and kind of trying to like reinvigorate like studying literature and because when I was in high school, it was kind of like pretty traditional. You read the book and you talked about it, and I mean I enjoyed it and everything, but I was trying to kind of incorporate multimedia more into it, and since I teach educational media, so I basically did a website, and the first tab is just an intro, and kind of talk about my background, and and then what I teach. These are some examples of some applications, Book Creator and DelightX, and whatnot, and then it kind of gets a little bit more into the nuts and bolts of it. I've got my hat too. I wore this on the Literary Character Day. But so this is the media section, and so I start talking about the different.
I'm sorry, Alex. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you haven't mentioned the elephant in the room. Is your project focuses on Alice in Wonderland, correct?
Oh yeah. I thought that was okay. Yeah, Alice in Wonderland. Right. I thought I said that. Yeah, exactly. And I'm just wearing the hat because we wear this on Literary Character Day, and I thought like kind of the idea of like I don't know, just kind of like role playing and whatnot. So one of them is podcasting. That's one of the media, and that's been very popular. I've been teaching that. We use Soundtrap, and they could retell a scene and act it out like it's an audio book. And then another way would be like shadow puppets. Similar. They could cut out their own puppets, and I actually put like the original edition 1865 on Google Classroom, so they could see the John Tenniel pictures, the illustrator, and use those as models if they want. To make their shadow puppets. And also kind of interesting to talk about John Tenniel and, how he's really wasn't a children's book author. And that's why, some people say that, Lewis Carroll really wasn't writing a children's book, but, more for adults, in a way, satirically and whatnot. And so then, I just kind of go through these readers' theater, they can read a script, and that's sort of the crux of it, because they can read a script. Then they could videotape it. Well, the next one is found poetry. And, one thing I think is kind of interesting is like these different like media sort of in a way, I mean, kind of mirror, like in a way, I mean, I guess you can analyze anything, but, they kind of mirror what Alice is going through, like, and like, like creating your own poem and like, out of, creating something new out of something existent. And then, Alice is also kind of like whatever, finding her own way and creating her own identity and growing up. And also this idea of like, like having some control and agency instead of always like, seeing these words as sacrosanct, being able to kind of manipulate them and change them and make them into something new. So like a metamorphosis, theme. And then it goes on, this would be videotaping. So like if they're acting something out, they could tape it with an iMovie on an iPad. And then these are some AI generated pictures. Dr. Shamber gave me that idea. It was like, and I thought that was a cool parallel too, just this idea of like creating something sort of out of your own imagination, but then the pictures kind of, I don't know, represent that in a way, as a parallel. And then video we talked about, and then this is green screen, using a green screen. Again, just kind of like really making it come alive for them. So, they feel like they're in the environment. Let's see. Then I have related literature. Big picture of the scary 80s technology, the microfiche. And then Eric Gordon, Dr. S introduced me to Eric Gordon and his work. And, really interesting. He has these Literacy Unbound programs, and students and teachers kind of act out, a work of literature. And but it's not so much like a literal like readers theaters kind of script. It's more like motion based and like a little more drama and incorporating music and things like that. And I thought they did Frankenstein. There's a little video on it. I thought Frankenstein was a good choice too, because like it's like this idea like you're creating something new out of Frankenstein, just like Frankenstein is a creation from various body parts and whatnot, like a new living being, kind of like an interesting parallel. And so, this goes on and discusses that. And then I talk about the appeal of Alice in Wonderland, and, Jefferson Airplane, they did the song White Rabbit. And I talk a little bit about how it's, kind of like an adult story in a way. And then I go on, I kind of discovered this website by Holly Williams that was really interesting. That was one of her points. It's a book that's really for adults, but she talked about like adaptation too and reinvention. And, this is a photographer, Tim Walker, who used like all Black actors to express his ideas. And, he said, I've never seen a Black Alice. I wanted to push how fictional fantasy figures can be represented and exploring evolving ideas of beauty. And that was something, I'm like trying to kind of encourage the students, to, not just like be very literal about it, but just to put their own twist on it and, make something new out of it and adapt it. And, and they've enjoyed it, it's not even some of the more jaded students, admitted that it was fun. And, I think sometimes they're just not used to like, having that like freedom to create, and, it takes them a while to warm up to it. And then they see like the possibilities for it. So then I also kind of talk about 60s counterculture, psychedelia, like the obvious kind of, references where like Alice is drinking substances that transform her and, to grow and to shrink. And, this line from White Rabbit, is basically just kind of, really literal, references to, Alice in Wonderland. And then, the lines at the end, the lyrics feed your head, interesting, like, they're talking about psychedelics and like expanding your mind or, your vision or whatnot. And, I just thought it was interesting, sort of like applying it to education and like, feeding your head and like, not just with like, facts and whatnot, but, like, how do you feed your creativity and, how are ways to do that? How do you teach that? So, I mean, basically, this project is more about like, adaptation and, reinventing something to make it new. And then, I've got some other stuff in here, why it's popular. It's, you know, a lot of themes like, you know, teenage coming of age, you know, doesn't, they're always like eternal themes. And then, you know, things like this nostalgia for like Victorian England, but at the same time, it's like very modern, like the writing style, the tone of it, and the message, and it's like a stark contrast to these like, really like great, grand Victorian novels like Middlemarch and Jane Eyre and Little Women and Great Expectations. Like it's very modern sounding. It's almost like like the Fear and Loathing of its day. Like when you read it and like the language. And like there was one part like early on in the story, and Alice is like, falling into Wonderland, and she's confused and she's trying to figure it out. And it reminded me of like almost like Woody Allen or George Costanza. Like she was so like I hate to say like, but like neurotic sound, like so full of self-doubt and stuff. And then,
Alice, I gotta say, we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going on too long.
No. But you inspired me during the project. I actually bought Alice in Wonderland Unabridged, and I enjoyed it very much. So thank you for making a convert. And I think this would be a great manual. And I think those topics you discuss, it's interesting for a teacher to think about how to do that, and for you to give guidance on how to do some of it in developmentally appropriate ways. So kudos for you for going deep on this with the pedagogical, the applications, and ideas for teachers to run with it. And I think once a teacher looks at this, they can apply it to different pieces of literature. But you really made a strong case for Alice in Wonderland. All right,
Oh,
everybody,
thank you.
I'm going to wrap it up now. I'm going to I'll post a discussion board, and I'll send you an email update tomorrow. You guys did a great job of keeping on time. If it wasn't for my technical glitches, this would have run. Well, it was perfect. So I'm not going to say anything else. Let me just.
Good job, everybody.
Yeah, great job. I'm going to try to. Let me just stop.
Great job. Thank
Yeah,
you.
good job, everybody. I second that.
Yeah, it was a great job, everybody. Give yourself a round of applause. Can you see my screen now?
I
You guys,
can't.
a round
Yeah,
of
sorry, I
applause.
had my screen share on too long.
No, that's all right. Thank you all for participating, and thank you all for the work you've done over the last year. It's been amazing stuff. I'm going to get you back feedback this week for your well, you're wrapping it up now, but thank you for the wonderful presentations, and I'll give you the link on YouTube, and if anyone has any questions, you could ask each other online. But
Thank
thanks
you for your
everything.
help for this and for all the years that you've helped.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. S.
Well, thank you, and we have
Really great feedback, inspiring.
It's been wonderful to work with you
Been
all.
fun.
So I'm going to end it right now. Thanks everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.